Hiring the right people completely unlocked my business for me. Now, I've been running an online software company for 3.5 years. You don't need to make the same mistakes that I did. Avoiding these mistakes to make your first hire will literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. There's only 2 rules to this. The first big rule is don't hire until you can afford the standards that you need, the quality standards. The second thing is do not hire to replace small tasks that are just annoying you. And I will explain both of these. The first thing is when I started this company, I thought, okay, hire quickly, just get people in, delegate the work on growing the business. Great, magic, this is how you do business. The line of thinking is valid, it makes sense, but I was limited on funds because I bootstrapped this company from nothing. And so when I was charging for my early clients, I didn't have a lot of credibility, so I underpriced myself to get the deals. And guess what? I had little money, so I couldn't afford amazing people. So I used the money to afford whoever I could, which was generally pretty low quality talent. The output of that talent was substandard to what I wanted to deliver. Bear in mind, these are my first clients as well. And so I basically had terrible results because I had to go and fix the stuff that they had produced because it was terrible. It didn't work as I wanted it to. In general, it was just problematic. Because I had to do it myself, I ended up delaying the project often because somebody would work on it. I would try and get them to fix it. Then I would have to ultimately give up and fix it myself because they just didn't get it. And it took really long. I still had to pay the people. The clients weren't happy because of the delays, although I did fix the product at least. The main thing is if you deliver substandard to what you want, you're lowering your reputation. When you hire people, it's your reputation on the line because the work that they produce is what you're putting your name on and saying, this is what I am doing for you. And so if you're thinking about making your first hire or whatever, I think the biggest suggestion I would give myself 2 years ago, making a first proper hire, is just make sure that you hire somebody who meets your quality standards. Because if they don't meet your quality standards, you are going to rack your brain trying to tell them that this isn't good enough because you need them to be here and they keep producing here. So basically you have to keep producing here until you can afford somebody who meets that or goes above, or is like slightly below and you can just pull them and make that small difference. But oftentimes when you're starting out, you can't afford that quality yet. And so just keep working by yourself until you can afford that quality and you push your prices up, because the reason why prices go higher is so that you can afford better people and scale your operation. At the end of the day, if you're willing to compromise, you can lower your standards temporarily. If you really need to make something happen, you can lower your standards. There are times where I think that can make sense. For example, I think these videos could be way higher quality than they are. I'd really like them to be, but I lowered my standards on this one because I knew that consistency was a bigger issue. And so basically I wanted to solve that first. And so I just optimized for consistency first, and then over time, better and better quality. If you go back to the start of my channel, the videos are literally the worst imaginable thing possible. They are just clips of me on my phone and there's no thumbnail. It's complete garbage. But I was optimizing for consistency, and that was definitely the goal there. And I knew that over time I would increase quality and show people what I'm actually capable of doing, what the quality that I can actually give. I'm okay with that, but when you're in client-facing projects, in my opinion, I don't want to sacrifice on that, especially not at the start. That was the first really big lesson for me. Don't hire people who are really shit because you're going to have to fix their work anyway. Second big thing is don't hire people to replace really small tasks. I think the other thing that I see some founders ask is, oh, I'm thinking of getting some assistant or whatever to just help me out with small things. I hired an assistant because I had a similar line of thinking at some point. 2 big lessons here. Firstly, try to delete before you delegate. Sometimes you're just working on things that don't need to be done. This sounds counterintuitive, but like honestly, we have so many ideas that oftentimes we throw them into our to-do list. At least like I do this, right? I want to do this and this and this, and I put it all into my to-do list. And some of those things aren't mission critical. Like they're not the highest leverage item. So for example, if I want to increase my leads, optimizing the website is okay. It might help. But the thing I really need to be doing is marketing and actually promoting the website. Because if I optimize the website, but there's only 5 visitors a month, that does nothing because I need to put in 100 new visitors a month. And so this is to basically say that sometimes you work on things that aren't the priority. And so you can delete a lot of those tasks. And then the second thing is hiring somebody is not just going to get rid of your work, because you need to manage them. You need to delegate the work to them. And if you hire somebody to just take small tasks off your plate, you have to train them to do those small tasks unless you can trust them to do them completely by themselves. When I hired a kind of assistant or something like that, I didn't have a budget for a $60,000 a year proper assistant that has been doing this for years or who has a bunch of experience. And so I got somebody who was more junior and they need more training. I essentially spent time training them, but because the tasks were very small and very different, I was just having to train them every single time. And so I was spending time delegating and figuring out what they could do that I could have just been executing and just done the work and saved money. And the time would have been pretty much the same. It only gives you a return on your work when the work was repetitive, because then you train them once and they do it 50 times. That's leverage, right? Whereas if you're training them 50 times, you might as well have done the 50 pieces of work. These are 2 big lessons for me. In terms of when to hire, I think it's really dependent on what you want to build. So what kind of business you want to build. But I think the first thing is don't hire too early. So So just don't hire until you can actually afford the people that you want to afford, or make sure that you set your prices where you can afford the people that you want to afford. So one of those two things needs to happen. Those are like two conditions to even think about hiring, in my opinion, if I were starting from scratch. If you've met both of those conditions and you're still wondering if you should hire or not, I think then that comes down to a lifestyle choice. So you can scale your business through basically the craftsman route, which is just getting really, really good at what you do and raising your hourly rate to insanely high, running a like $1 million a year solo one-man business. Like there are people who do this nowadays, and basically they're really good at what they do. And so that's the only thing that they do, and that's great. The other route is the business scaling route. And so basically that's where you scale with people, you scale with headcount, you scale with business. There's pros and cons to both. It really comes down to a lifestyle difference. I'm actually going to talk about this in a different video that comes out tomorrow or over the next few days. The long story short is solopreneur, less headache, just become the best person at doing the thing yourself. But it's always going to be smaller than if you scale. Not immediately. So maybe scaling can take longer. The scaling ultimately always has a bigger roof as a business, and you bring in more people. More people can be more fun, but also more headache. You can definitely get to 7 figures with both routes. You can make a lot of money. I've seen people do it in both. So it comes down to personal preference there. And I can't speak to scaling some kind of fully solopreneur venture myself. I like the business route. I like people and I like scale. That's the route that appeals to me, but I think it's more of a personal decision on that front. If you have any questions about how to make that first hire and things like that, I'd love to help out anybody who's thinking about that. I know that for me, it was something that I moved on relatively quickly, and I made a lot of mistakes in doing that, but I've also been part of some founder communities that have been asking questions about that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd speak on that because somebody found a lot of value in what we talked about, so I thought I'd share that. Anyway, as usual, comment any questions and I will go ahead and reply to those.